Welcome to Performance Incentives Training. So far, we've talked about work breakdown structures, performance objectives, defining performance standards, and the purpose and utility of acceptable quality standards. But we haven't discussed why the contractors do what they do. What motivates contractors to perform above the minimum standards established in a contract? It's important to know the answer to this question, because even the most well-defined requirement won't motivate contractors to exceed standards if they're not properly incentivized. So let's take a break from the contracting side of requirements definition and discuss contractors' performance incentives and the tools that we have at our disposal to incentivize the contractor's performance. The contractor's motivation to meet and exceed the performance standards established in the contract will be, at least partially, a result of the incentives that the government offers them. Understanding these incentives will allow us to highlight them in our written contracts, recognize them in our conversations, and bring them to the forefront of our negotiations. Doing this can help us persuade and influence our contractors. And if you're thinking of incentive contract types, such as award fee, award term, etc., we will not be discussing incentive type contracts here. We will be looking at other tangible and intangible incentives of doing business with the government. So we'll look at 3 types of contract incentives. These 3 types of incentives, if used properly, can help inspire your contractors to achieve greater levels of quality performance and delivery. The 3 types of contract incentives are simply enough: positive incentives, negative incentives, and positive or negative incentives. Positive incentives for our contractors include finance-related incentives, incentives that increase the contractor's opportunities to receive future business, and incentives that can enhance the morale and loyalty of the contractor's employees. The government supports these positive incentives by offering profits, financing options, contract options, relationships of mutual respect and trust, and reduced performance oversight. Profits. Yes, contractors get paid for the work they do, and yes, they make profits. We want our contractors to be profitable, because profitable contractors are financially incentivized to be reliable and provide higher levels of quality products and services that satisfy the government. When contractors are profitable, they are willing to do business with the government more often, and this increases our base of competent and responsible contractors, which in turn can increase competition. Ultimately, increasing the number of competitive contractors should result in higher contractor standards, lower contract costs, and increased accessibility to innovative solutions overall. Regarding finance options, you have multiple financing and payment options listed in FAR Part 32. Also, you may structure the contract in a way that allows the contractor to receive payments during performance of the contract. This can be an exceptionally valuable incentive for small businesses that lack cash flow. The incentive of a faster payment may incentivize for these businesses to meet and exceed contract standards. Contract options. Contract options are often overlooked as contract incentives because they relieve the government of the extensive administrative burdens associated with reprocuring follow-on contracts. Of course, the contractor receives a huge incentive by receiving a contract containing 1 or more option periods. Contract options provide the contractor with workforce stability, reliable revenue, employee work forecasting, reduces mobilization and demobilization costs, and others. Mutual respect and trust. I recently met with a construction company that had received a letter from a contracting officer in Colorado. The letter read in part, "Thank you for your proposal, and although you did not win the contract because you were not the low price, I am impressed with the thoroughness and accuracy of your proposal." This unnecessary but simple letter established a respect and trust between the contractor and the government that will not be soon forgotten. Being respected is important to all Americans, whether they are a service member, in civil service, or a contractor. Moreover, mutual respect and trust establish a platform from which open and honest communications between a contractor and government can be established. This open and honest communication can also help the government receive valuable feedback and support when needed. Reduced performance oversight. I think we all agree that we don't like our bosses hovering over us, analyzing every single piece of work that we do, day in and day out. After all, we're adults, right? Well, it can become overwhelming and frustrating for contractors too. With the incentive of reduced performance oversight, which reduces the frequency and/or intensity of quality assurance surveillances, for those contractors that can be trusted, contractors can experience an increased feeling of ownership to their contracts. More importantly, reduced performance oversight is an intangible benefit that some contractors will strive to accomplish. FAR 12.208 states, contracts for commercial items, to include services, shall rely on contractors' existing quality assurance systems. This practice can be smartly built into your quality assurance surveillance plans and be advertised as an intangible performance incentive to encourage the contractor's high-quality performance. Several of us have been around long enough to know that positive incentives don't work on all contractors, or on all people. For those contractors that are motivated by what they stand to lose, more than by what they stand to gain, we have negative incentives. Although there are more, we'll just cover these three right now: contract reperformance, liquidated damages, and contract termination. Contract reperformance. Contractors that fail to perform their contracted services are eligible for reduced pay or no pay in accordance with FAR Clause 52.246-4, titled Inspection of Services Fixed Price. This clause says the government has the right to inspect and test services, and if those services do not conform with contract requirements, the government may require services to be provided again, so conformance with the contract is met, or if the services can't be corrected by performance, the government may require contractor to take actions to ensure future performance is conforming, and reduce the contract price to reflect the reduced value of the services performed. Reduction of contract price should only be considered after consulting legal. Liquidated damages. There are liquidated damages clauses for supplies, services, and construction available at 52.211-11 and 52.211-12. Liquidated damages may be used under special circumstances, such as if you have a requirement that is of high importance, and when it would be difficult to determine an exact amount of damages the government would suffer as a result of the delayed delivery or performance. Liquidated damages don't punish the contractor for delayed performance, but rather they compensate the government for delays caused by the contractor. The use of liquidated damages clauses notify the contractor upfront that on-time delivery and/or accurate and timely performance is important to the government. Contract termination. Termination of convenience and termination of default, respectively known as T4C and T4D, are methods of terminating contracts in accordance with FAR Part 49. You may terminate contracts at the sole discretion of the government as a termination for convenience. Or, on the other hand, if the contractor is non-compliant with their contract, you can follow the process to terminate the contract for default. Contractors do not normally want their contracts terminated, and they especially don't want their contracts terminated for default if they have aspirations of doing business with the government in the future. And then we have contract incentives that may be used in a positive or negative light. Quality assurance and performance assessment reports are reports that are submitted by the Corps to the contractor and the contract administrator on a recurring basis, which is usually monthly. This recurring performance assessment report notifies the contractor about how well they're meeting the standards established in the contract. This report, if managed properly, can be used to guide the contractor to meet and exceed performance standards. What happens occasionally is the quality assurance inspectors will tell the contractor there are no noted discrepancies in their performance for the month and still give the contractor a 3 out of 5-star rating. Performance assessment reports should be used as tools of influence to reinforce positive behavior and influence changes in areas of contract performance where improvements can be made. These monthly or recurring performance assessment reports are used to give the contractors past performance ratings, which is the second and last of the positive or negative incentives we'll cover here. Past performance ratings motivate the contractors to receive the highest possible performance ratings, because contractors know that the government uses past performance ratings to make important decisions, such as the decision to exercise an option or which contractor to award a contract to. Receiving positive past performance ratings is vitally important for contractors that want to continue and increase their business relationships with the government. Having a good past performance history proves a contractor is capable of successfully completing contracts and fulfilling the requirements of FAR 9.104, which requires that every contractor be deemed responsible prior to being awarded a contract. And good past performance can also be a competitive advantage for a contractor when past performance is used as an evaluation factor. Your role as a business advisor includes making effective business decisions. One of these very important business decisions is how to find the proportional balance between the contract risk, desired performance standards, and the performance incentives offered to the contractor. If you can strike this balance, you can effectively leverage the benefits to the contractor against the contractor's performance to help their motivation to meet and exceed contract standards.